of the Young Leaders Club podcast. And this episode I'm joined with Jean Templeton. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being a guest. We've got lots to talk about today. You are the chair of the advisory board of the Young Leaders Club. You're also the chief executive of St Basils. So there's lots to kind of unpick about what you do and again about the mission of the Young Leaders Club. So start by telling us a little bit about you and your background and what inspired you to dedicate your career to young people.
Okay, well, so my background is I'm a housing professional. I started in public sector housing many years ago and worked in the public sector for about 27 years.
Oh my goodness.
I know. I was only 12 when I started.
Of course.
And then big shift really from public sector to St Basils, which obviously voluntary and community sector. That was back in 2000.
Oh my goodness.
And this is my 24th year.
Yeah, that is so good. So what was it that made you turn to St Basils after having such a career in...
So I had kind of statutory responsibility for homelessness.
Okay.
So when I was in public sector, and I not just young people, across the whole piece. And I think it was just, like you get to that stage in your life, your career, and you think, is it more of the same, but maybe somewhere different, or is it something a bit different?
Yeah.
And have I really got any transferable skills that I could do? And I'd always had a huge high regard for St Basils. Because I used to be borough housing manager in Tamworth before I came to St Basils, and we didn't have sufficient provision for young people, and so we would sometimes work with St Basils, and young people might come to St Basils, then they would come back to Tamworth when we had somewhere for them. Yeah. And so I had a huge regard for the organisation, and the job came up, and it was one of those. And I went for it, and I was fortunate to be successful, and 24 years later.
Well, it's been a good choice then, hasn't it? 24 years into it. But really makes you quite a good person to be sat on the advisory board because, there's lots of young people.
I'm old and I've been around a long time, me and Lauren.
But, there's lots of people who, maybe they go into university straight after college and they're thinking, the pressure's on, I've got to kind of go down this career. Do university, come out of it and think, actually, this is not what I want to do. So the fact that you kind of had that career change, will really kind of be insightful to lots of young people that, you can have a career in this sort of area or whatever area you're in, and you can just cross and change and use those transferable skills. But what were some of the key moments or experiences in your early career that shaped your passion for social work and youth advocacy? Advocacy. That's what I'm trying to say.
To me, it was all about... So housing is fundamental, isn't it? Housing, if you haven't got somewhere that's safe, that's secure, that's a home, then everything else is very much, at risk, isn't it? And challenge. So it was always about housing. It was always about ensuring that people had somewhere to call home. And working in the statutory sector, you see people where they don't have that and they experience homelessness or they're at risk of homelessness. And I think it was kind of in my early time. I was I was a housing officer, I was on estates, I was in Newcastle on Tyne, I was in Middlesbrough, I've been in all sorts of different parts of the country. And I think the most influential sort of things for me were when you were working close to people, you were on the estates, you were learning about their lives, their challenges, what was important to them, and recognising that, even I was public, my job was to enable and support them to keep their home. And so, learning about systems, learning about how they interact with people's lives, learning that they don't always work for people. All of those sort of things, I think, kind of had an influence on me. So when the St Basils one came up, it was the homelessness part. It was sort of so young people, least experienced, least resources. Often it's relationship, family breakdown, conflict, whatever. So actually, they need that really trusted support. And so it was kind of, almost morphed into that. And I did think at the time that, gosh, moving into an organisation that deals specifically with homelessness, not anything else, and young people, is that going to seem really narrow compared to?
Yeah.
But, 24 years later, and I don't think it is narrow at all, because actually it's, you know, it just opens up the impacts of every single part of our social systems, and how we need to make them more inclusive. We need to make sure they keep young people in and enable them to, you know, sort of develop and achieve their ambitions and
sometimes
use their talents.
We can be so ignorant, really, when we have been quite privileged with, you know, our background, or, you know, we have had a nice home to live in, and everything else kind of stems from there, whereas that is really the key fundamental of everything else, knowing that you've got a nice, secure home.
Safe as well.
Yeah.
Safety is such a critical thing for young people.
Yeah.
And I think it's something we don't always think about, because a lot of us have, as you say, have the privilege of taking that for granted, but a lot of people don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, you know,
and until you're in that position, you would never even know. I would never even know. So it's really an amazing mission that St Basils has, and you know, I think a lot of that, people who maybe are a little bit uncertain of whether they've got secure housing, or, you know, not too sure whether they're coming or going somewhere. I can imagine it'd be really hard to think of, okay, what is my future going to look like? Which is where, you know, the Young Leaders Club kind of wants to come in and be able to say, look, we've got these different workshops. There are people who are willing to mentor. Here are your opportunities. You know, which really, we want people from all backgrounds to know that it's not all doom and gloom. There are people here who want to help. So what are some of the most common challenges that the young people that you work with face, and how does St Basils kind of address that? Kind of linking in here with, you know, where programmes like the Young Leaders come into it.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of things, and it's obviously individual to every young person in terms of where it is. But there are kind of structural things that create challenges for young people, and then there'll be personal things as well, and the two often combine. And, you know, it may be that, you know, when things start to unravel, they kind of have a knock-on effect. Yeah. So, you know, it might unravel, things might be unravelling at home, or you might be in the care system, or there might be all kind of traumatic things that have happened. And then that might have a knock-on impact on your schooling, and you might start, you know, falling out at school, or you might have some, you know, health or learning issues which, you know, you don't feel confident enough to discuss at school, so you might end up falling out there. So things can start to kind of unravel a bit at different in different places and in different ways, and sometimes they have a knock-on effect and they compound each other. So we sometimes talk about like the four legs of a table. That if you've got a safe, secure home, then one leg of your table is fairly solid. Yeah. If you've got a means of earning your income or a progression towards that, then another leg is fairly solid. If you've got good health, or you've got the support you need in order to enable you to help, you know, as much as you need it, third leg. And then the fourth leg, do you have people that care about you? Do you have support? It could be family, it could be friendships, it could be you might be in the care system, but have you got good support around you? And kind of if you think of those kind of four legs of your table, then your table's pretty solid, and you can build on it, and you can do all things, and you can, you know, you might have issues with one or two of them, but the rest will hold you together. Yeah. And I suppose lots of us have got those, and then maybe we've got networks behind them. So, you know, if I lose my job, I'm not going to be homeless. Yeah. If my son or daughter lose they're not going to be homeless because they've got family resources. But for lots and lots of young people, they don't have those networks behind them, and one thing might happen and it might unravel and have a knock-on effect on the other, and before you know it, it kind of falls over. Yeah. So what you're trying to do when you say you're looking at every young person as an individual, and you're looking at, we try to take a strengths-based approach. We try to look at, you know, what's your skills, what's your talents, what are you good at, what do you want to do with your life, do you know what you want to do with your life, and if not, you know, how do we find out? How do we give you the opportunities to do different things, to find out? And then how do we help remove those barriers? and those hurdles that are going to get in the way.
Yeah.
And that might be as simple as actually, I really want to be whatever in construction, but, you know, I haven't got my maths GCSE, or I haven't, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So it might be that it's about qualifications, or it might be other things. It might be, I don't know what I want to do. I don't, you know, so it might be, well, let's give you some other experiences.
Yeah.
Or it might be there's a lot of other things we need to resolve before we even think about that, because there's too many things going on.
Yeah.
So it's about really this personalising, really understanding each young person's circumstances and their aspirations and helping them reach themselves.
Yeah, you wouldn't even think of that theory of the 4 legs of the table, because again, you know, you can't, I think when you think of your career and where you want to be, you tend to block out all the rest of it, because you're so like, you know, okay, tunnel vision on this is where I want to end up, and you don't take into consideration things like, you know, your health support system, things about like, you know, some people say, oh, just take the risk, you know, just jump in, you can do it. And for someone like me, for example, you know I live at home with mum and dad, and it's fine, and I kind of, not that I can afford to just go and, you know, do whatever. You still have to think of financial things, but I know that, you know, for whatever reason, if I did lose my job, I would be okay, and that is what we take for granted. So I think the work that St Basils does for people, young people, older people, whoever, who don't have that support network, it's kind of giving them that leg of the table, you know.
It's what we're trying to do. Funnily enough, that kind of description, I first heard it many years ago, and it was a business person, and it was a business person who was describing it to a business audience, and that they were doing. St Basils used to kind of run Seeing is Believing, and, you know, for supporters, and there was a business audience, and the individual, I used to be a production manager at Cadbury's many years ago, and he said, I think of it as the 4 legs of a table. And it stuck with me ever since then, because I think that's a really good way of describing it, because you know, you can kind of remember that as opposed to some of the more complex.
You visualise it a little bit more, which is really good. I can imagine you've got lots of success stories of people who you've, you know, met along the way in St Basils. Are there any like standout people who, you know, have gone on a bit of a journey?
There's lots and lots, and interestingly, last year was our sort of official 50th anniversary, and although St Basils was in the late 60s, but from a housing perspective, it was 1972. And so we did a bit of a kind of call out to our alumni. And of course, some of those were in their 70s.
Oh my goodness.
You think about it, you know, if it's 50 years and it was 16 to 25-year-olds, there could be some. So it was amazing kind of hearing stories about what people have done with their lives, and just it was just wonderful, and it wasn't about all making us feel good. It was about learning so they could inspire other young people around, actually, yes, this is one stage of your life, and you can, you know, take the opportunity, but it doesn't prevent you doing things, you know, it's just a start. So there are lots and lots of young people doing all kind of different things. Some keep in touch, some work for us now.
Oh, wow.
Or came back after a number of years and work for us, or support in different ways, or are in all kind of positions.
I suppose to work for the company as well, if you've been in that position yourself, you kind of have that emotional connection to it as well. So with other young people who are in that position, if you're working alongside someone who's been through it, you know, there's kind of that middle ground there that other people may probably not be able to build. But I think, especially as someone who, I love to hear from other people, I love to hear other people's experiences, especially if I'm in that position myself, you know, or there's someone that I aspire to be like. If I can hear them on a podcast, or, you know, doing an interview, whatever, I always find that so useful compared to someone else just saying, oh yeah, how about this person, so really good actually that you were able to kind of see people who've been in it from the start and see where they end up.
And there's a number of people who sort of made little films, and they're on our website in terms of what they're doing and what their experience was, and really appreciate the fact that they're proud. They're not ashamed to say, actually, this was my experience, or is it, So we kind of take I like to think of it as the sort of universal family. So if you, the kind of whole thing about it takes a village to bring up a child, well, actually, then it takes all of us to ensure that our children and young people, have the kind of opportunities that we want for all of those that we care about. And I think that's what we try. Yeah. Not always successfully. I'm not saying we always get it right. We certainly don't. But that's what we try to do at St Basils, to ensure that those young people really are able to explore their possibilities.
Absolutely, yeah. And, not everyone has access to university, or not everyone has access to college, or, even school sometimes. And, it's good to know that there are charities out there and organisations out there that are kind of, honing that in and letting people know, this isn't the be-all, end-all, of having to go to university. And we couldn't do it alone either. We could not do it without the huge support, without the partnerships with other organisations. The infrastructure that's in this city and in this region is really important in terms of making the best use of all the resources. So local authorities, health service, children's services, adult, all housing associations, all of those kind of working together, the business sector as well, to say, there are young people. How can we ensure that they have those? Absolutely. Young people are the future, So, this is where it's going to tie in nicely now to the Young Leaders Club and letting people know what opportunities are going to be there, what this programme wants to put on offer for young people, especially within the Birmingham community. So you are the chair of the advisory board of the Young Leaders Club, which, I think, especially here you talk now about St Basils and young people, a perfect fit, I think. I think you'll be, you've got a different kind of perspective on young people and, those from maybe underrepresented backgrounds, really being able to showcase, come on guys, this is another way into different things. So what are your main responsibilities as the chair of the advisory board?
So I think the advisory board, it's obviously all of it's quite new, and we're brainstorming, forming, etc., whatever order that's
one step at a time at the moment.
I think the advisory board is made up of kind of a diverse group of people from different sectors, different backgrounds, different experiences that kind of work with young people or work with businesses. And I think it's to help the Young Leaders Club to just kind of ensure that are we on mission? Is the mission right in the first place? Are we truly open and accessible for all young people? So we're kind of, I think it's helping in that sense. So advisory board is really important in that sense. It's that privileged position of being able to sort of give perspectives. I think also from me, I want to make sure that we are reaching those young people that wouldn't maybe even think about having the confidence to join anything called Young Leaders. Do you know what I mean? Yes. So I think it's about making sure that it is open, it is inclusive, it is accessible. We remove barriers that get in the way.
And then it's not scary.
It's not scary, exactly. So we can kind of overcome those. Because the other side of it is, I think, if we don't do that, to me, it's a two-way benefit. Yeah. So clearly, we want to create a benefit for young people. But we also, I think, underestimate sometimes the benefits for the businesses. Because businesses that just kind of mirror their own images and things and live in echo chambers, they're not generally successful. No. And, if businesses really want to reflect the communities they serve, if they want to have like those diverse perspectives, if they want to not live in echo chambers, then actually they've got to be open and learn as well.
Absolutely.
And it seems to me the difference with the Young Leaders Club is that this is about bringing the two together and mutual learning, Not just like, oh, we have a pathway for young people. It's young people that are in these organisations that will already have been through all of our recruitment and filter systems.
Yeah.
And therefore they're already kind of partly like us. Well, they might be.
Yeah.
But there's an awful lot of others
Yeah.
that might even not have thought about being part of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But have all kinds of qualities and skill sets and strengths and experience that actually could help your business enormously. So for me, it's kind of enabling the two to be brought together.
Of course, and as much as we want young people to be involved, you know, there's also the cry out for businesses to be involved, to give those opportunities as well, like you were saying, you know, to evolve with the current situation of, you know, society and education and where young people stand, and, you know, also the fact as a young person, you know, I've applied for jobs and gone through that whole process, and there's so many companies where, you know, you've got to have experience, but you're in a position where you've just left school, so you're a bit like,
how would you get it?
How are you going to get it? And I think this is really where that gap is trying to be met, and the bridge is trying to be built over it, of this is where you can get your fundamental skills, because a lot of young people are left in the doom and gloom of, well, where am I meant to go if no one is going to give me the opportunity? How am I meant to progress further? So, you know, I think it's important to, you know, say to young people, that is the reality of it, but this is where we're trying to put the work in. And again, with businesses, you know, just because people are young and they've just come out of education doesn't mean that they don't know how to pick things up or, you know, navigate your way through different situations. And again, looking at those transferable skills of what you've already got and how you can apply that to different situations. So how do you see the Young Leaders Club contributing to the empowerment and development of young leaders? I mean, we've kind of touched on it a little bit.
I mean, see, the thing is as well, when you're young and you've been in school, or maybe you've gone on to, you know, FE college, or you might go on to higher education or whatever, but you kind of only know what you know. So we don't even know very often what are the jobs out there. What do people do? A lot depends on, well, who do I know in my family that might have done this? Who do I know? You know, like I see teachers, you know, I see people driving buses, I see people doing different things. But how many of the other jobs that you've never heard of that are not visible do you know anything about? And so sometimes it's kind of, you're almost like making choices about what you want to do when you haven't even got much of a clue as to what there is out there.
Absolutely.
And again, if you've got family resources, if you've got family support, if you're going through things, then you might be helped to be steered through all of that, and you can fall back. If it all goes wrong, you can change your mind. But if you're not in a position to that, sometimes you're having to make decisions very quickly. Sometimes you're making decisions that actually, forget all of that, I just need money. I need to earn, or I need to do something. Or actually, I haven't even got anywhere to live, so I am stuck, and I'm stuck on benefits because actually I couldn't earn enough in order to pay my rent and my bills and everything else. So again, there are so many different experiences that young people have that I don't think organisationally, and I'm not just saying businesses, but organisationally, we understand that. And so we go for, right, we put the advert out, we put the job out, and then we hope people come to us. And that's fine if there are plenty of people coming to us. But as we all know, post-COVID, everything else, it's a very different recruitment, retention, you know, world. So I for me, this is about outreach and inreach. This is about enabling businesses to connect, and organisations to connect with those that might not even have thought about what you've got in there. You know, just never have come across the radar. And let young people see that, have that experience. And then also for those young people to be able to connect with those businesses in relation to, well, how would someone like me come through here? How would you have this more diverse and inclusive workforce? How can I bring my lived experience, you know, into this, whatever that setting is?
And definitely, like, really talk to other businesses and organisations to find out what roles are there, because, you know, even just from doing this podcast, talking to lots of different people in lots of different industries, some of them I'm like, I didn't even know what that job was.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? Someone who I'm very much always loved performing and, you know, being creative, wouldn't even know anything about different corporate roles or, you know, jobs in construction or property. From talking to people and being like, actually, that is a whole other career I didn't even know existed. So I think that's, again, what's really important, to just make young people aware that, you know, coming onto a programme like this, yes, it's lots of self-development, but also learning about what is on offer, you know, and not thinking that, oh, it's all, again, doom and gloom, I haven't got any qualifications, or, you know, and there's so many different success stories of people who haven't got any qualifications and have worked their way up, and you know, you don't have to go and get a degree. And I think in today's society in particular, it is rammed at young people down their throats. You've got to go and get a degree, you need to go to college, you need to do this. And sometimes I think, does it even work out for the better? Because the cost of it is so expensive. You know, there's so many people now who are living in student debt, that being consuming people. It's another worry, it's another stress. And really making it aware to people that there are other routes, there are other ways down, there are people who are willing to give you that opportunity. You don't have to go and, you know, spend X amount of money to, you know, do this and this and this.
I think that there's a long post-COVID tail that's still kind of playing out.
It's going to be a long while, I think, before it's fully
when you see the infrastructure as well that we have buildings that were built pre-COVID, when there's loads and loads of office space and the expectation is that people would be in them. We have you know, different kinds of apartments and city centre living and all sorts of things, where again it's expected people would have to be where the office is and travel to work. And I think, you know, the world and the expectations, there's a lot of flux and shift and change, and we're in that sort of liminal zone where, you know, it's kind of not quite clear yet. You know, there's still opportunity to influence what happens in the future and how things have to change. And I just think, therefore, young people, it's had a greater impact because of just the age, the time of their life it happened to them, if they were in the education system, if they were just starting work. Things are very, very different for those young people. And I think many of us who've been around a long while in different kind of organisations, we're used to what it was like before. And so there is an opportunity now to bring together those different perspectives and to have those facilitated discussions about actually what is it we're all trying to achieve. What will the future type of leadership look like? What is that kind of inclusive, collaborative leadership that is going to have to take us forward? And for me, the Young Leaders Club and the emphasis on leaders is around ensuring that collectively and collaboratively we shape that nature of leadership for the future.
Absolutely. Well, the next generation, someone's got to lead us eventually.
And leadership at all kind of levels, because that's the other thing. It's not, you know, it isn't just that kind of command, control, conventional sort of thing. You know, I'm privileged to see leadership right across our young people, amazing examples of leadership. We could not do what we do without their influence and their expertise and their advice and everything. And I just think, you know, we shifting from that sort of position,
that hierarchy,
to kind of really understanding what leadership means, what it's about,
working with each other, collaborating. You know,
it is what it you know, leadership is what leadership does, really. And hence interest in this.
So, wrapping up the episode, what advice would you give to young leaders who are currently facing their own struggles?
I think, first of all, they will not see themselves as leaders. You know, like imposter syndrome is a massive thing that most of us feel at different times, don't we? And kind of like, and I think, so there's two things. I think one, you know, it's about being able to have those conversations, to have, you know, your support team around you. Who is your support? You know, who's your coach? Who's your, you know, who's helping you do that? And that might be friendships, but it also might be people that you can trust within different parts of the system. It might be people that have different types of experiences. It's having that opportunity. So it is about choosing your support team. And I hope that in terms of the development of the Young Leaders Club, that what we're offering to young people in leadership positions, young people who are aspiring, or young people who want to be in there, that we can help provide that support team around them.
Provide that trusted sort of environment and hub really to offer out, you know, if you do need any help, advice, you know, you can come to someone who's involved.
And it's about us and whatever we offer, and those that are, you know, sponsoring and ambassadors and mentors and supporters, about us being trustworthy. Because, you know, the old thing, trust is built in inches and it's lost in yards, and that is often people's experience. So again, I think about that advisory board role, that it is about ensuring we understand as well what's required. We're learning,
and everyone on the board is very enthusiastic about the Young Leaders Club. You know, it's not just, we're here, we're on the Young Leaders Club advisory board. You know, a lot of people, well, everyone on it, that is their mission. Their mission is to say to young people, we're here to create this opportunity for you. We're here to advise you, to mentor you. They really do want the best for these young people who are coming into the cohort.
They do, and I think we also need to be here. We're here to learn from you and with you.
Yes, absolutely. Love
because it's two-way.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think some of the key skills and qualities that young people should develop when they're trying to navigate these challenges in the early stages of their career?
Gosh.
In order to build a successful one?
I think it depends. I think it kind of really depends. Sometimes it's about us not even understanding what our strengths are, you know, where we are kind of, because you can overplay what strengths you have and you can underplay those, and you might need to deal with other people who have got some of the strengths that you don't. So I really think that one of the most important things you can offer to any is helping them understand what their strengths are. And recognise them. And then that helps you recognise strengths in others, and it also helps you realise when sometimes you overplay them, and also sometimes when you reject other things because actually that's not yours. So I do think that kind of understanding your strengths, understanding the role, what the expectations are, but also sometimes it's being prepared to challenge those expectations, because if you just kind of follow on,
push yourself.
It's just more. So it's about it's also about that sort of, you know, really understanding what is it that, you know, the world that you're going to be operating within, and how you can learn about and from that, but also how you remain true to yourself in a professional way. So I think there's lots of stuff and lots of behaviours that are not okay in organisations and organisational settings. So. And
again, it's all a learning process.
And what we don't want is just young people just to be kind of inducted into inappropriate behaviour. You know, there's many organisations that you know, that's what happens. You just come in and you're inducted and you're told how to behave and what's acceptable here, and then you think, oh. So I do think we need more kind of mature and grown-up approaches in organisations in order to develop the kinds of policies, procedures, etc. that will help take things forward.
Absolutely. Well, I think as a guest today, you've been brilliant, because, you know, we've heard of lots of different people, and we've heard lots of success stories and how people have kind of navigated their way through their own career. But I think you've given a really good sort of overview of the actual real life struggles that young people are facing. And again, you've got that different perspective of it, being the in charge of St Basils, you know, and overseeing that kind of operation. So I think for a lot of people who may be listening or find themselves in a similar position, or finding themselves, you know, again with the missing leg of the table, or a little bit worried about where to go, I think you've given some really good advice.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, Jean, for
Pleasure,
coming on and
thanks,
having a
Erin.
chat today. And I'm sure we'll see lots more of you as you're involved with the Young Leaders Club. But yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.